Hi, welcome back to Movie Review Mom. I have some very good news, and that is some movie theaters are opening up across the country, at least here in the United States. In particular, Regal Cinemas is opening up July 10th. So good luck in your area. Hopefully, you'll have a theater opening and it'll be safe and clean, and you can enjoy the big screen and that awesome movie theater popcorn. So for today, though, I'm going to review the movie Artemis Fowl, which is available online. The movie is rated PG. It's an hour and 35 minutes. And sadly, the movie review mom grade I'm going to give it is a D. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you a quick overview of what's happening with this film. And then I'll point out some tips for parents and some things I liked and didn't like. So, first of all, Disney obviously has finally launched this long awaited feature film on the Disney Plus channel. Disney actually bought the rights to this movie before the first book was even published. Fans of the have been so excited and absolutely love the book series and have hated this movie. And I feel so bad for them. Now, I've never actually read the book, so I had zero expectations, and I was just happy to see what the story was all about because I know the fans have been so passionate about these books by Ian Colfer. And in fact, he joked and said that this movie wasn't going to get done until after he died, because honestly, they've been working on it since the year 2001. And when you watch the movie, you think, really? Seems like it could have used a little bit more work. And by the way, Ian Colfer, the author of the stories, has a little cameo in the movie. Here's a picture so you can see what he looks like. The movie is directed by Sir Kenneth Branagh, who I really like. In fact, I thought he did a fantastic job in the live action remake of Cinderella. And I'm embarrassed to tell you how many times I've watched that movie because I think it is so well done. There were a couple little things I didn't like, but overall, I thought it was just beautiful. So people had high hopes. He also did the movie Thor. And so again, people were excited to see what he was going to do with this story. It and I'm not sure what went wrong here, but the film features magic, wonder, elves, dwarves, goblins, trolls, and honestly, so many other things going on that that's actually one of the reasons why the film suffers. It's kind of all over the place and just a little too messy and confusing. And well, anyway, I'll get to all of that in just a minute. So, as I mentioned, the fans have been posting really negative reviews saying that the film just desecrates the brilliance of the books and the stories. So, here are some tips for parents. First of all, it's watchable for kids. If they haven't read the book, they'll be entertained. As an adult, you probably will be, especially if you were like me and you didn't have any expectations, although you'll instantly think it's forgettable and just kind of an average action movie with, lots of nonsense. One of the good things about the movie is that there's no profanity, so it's family friendly to watch. And there's this one character named Mulch, and so he gets discriminated against because he's a very tall dwarf. So to make this movie timely, you can talk about discrimination that's going on in the world and what you and your family might be able to do to help prevent discrimination from hurting people. Because it's a fantasy, there's fantasy violence and people and creatures in perilous situations. There's lots of action, and kids will enjoy that. Now, when I tried to identify some positive themes in the book, I had a little bit of a difficult time because it doesn't come across really clearly in the movie. I wrote down a line by Mulch, this character who's played by Josh Gad, and he says, "Let me show you the infinite possibilities of magic." So, certainly, magic is a theme. However, magic used for good and magic used for bad or for evil. Another theme that I heard mentioned a few times was it's time to believe. So, are they just trying to tell us to believe in anything, to believe in magic, to believe in each other? again, it was not quite clear, especially for a Disney movie, which, for example, in Cinderella makes it really clear, it bangs you over the head with what that theme is. And so I was kind of surprised that, it wasn't super obvious. Maybe friendship, family, ingenuity, stuff like that. But it might be an interesting activity or exercise to ask your kids at the end of the movie what themes they picked out and what they thought the main message of the movie was. Now, there were some things I definitely liked about the movie. First of all, I loved seeing Ireland in the movie. I had planned to go there last month, but was forced to cancel my flights and all my reservations due to the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent closure of international borders and all of that kind of travel restrictions. So I pretended like I was on my vacation while I watched the movie. The crew spent 2 weeks filming in Ireland in 2018 at White Rocks Beach, Portrush, and Dunluce Castle. And I haven't been to any of those places yet, but I hope to soon. Now, Disney loves Josh Gad, and I do too, although I know that a lot of people don't like him, and his stand up comedy is really dirty. So don't let your kids watch that. But his voice is so recognizable, but that I appreciated that he tried to change it. He's got a deeper, grovelly voice. And so at first I didn't recognize it was him. And then I was like, okay, yeah, that's Josh Gad. I think he actually does a really good job, but I have a couple other comments about him and his character in just a second. There's another character whose name is Domovoy Butler, and he's described as Eurasian in the books so that he can kind of blend in. But director Kenneth Branagh said, Sir Kenneth Branagh said he always Nonso Anozi in the role. And again, he put him in the movie Cinderella, both with Disney and the director. So he must have been really impressed with him and wanted to give him a shot at this particular role as well. And another change of cast was the role of Commander Root, who's a man in the books, but a female in this movie, played by Dame Judi Dench, kind of as an ode to her role as M, the chief of the Secret Intelligence Service in some of the James Bond movies like Skyfall. And so that was kind of fun to see her. I thought the time freezes aspect in the movie were fun, although I couldn't quite understand its rules of its properties. Maybe because I need to read the books and really understand them, but things just kind of kept happening and the time freeze would react differently in different scenes that didn't quite make sense to me. There were some humorous lines that made me laugh out loud, and there were some very good special effects. However, there were some things that I didn't like about the movie. And again, the biggest question is what happened with the directing of this film? Because I did love so much what Sir Kenneth Branagh did in Cinderella and Thor, and I think he's a great actor. And so it just didn't make sense that this movie would be so bad. One thing I thought was strange is, as I mentioned, this character Mulch Diggums, uh, played by Josh Gad, at first looked exactly like Hagrid from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, including that long trench coat, his hair, the whole thing. Not so much his voice, but I was like, wait a minute, is that what he looks like in the books? Or it just seemed like several other elements from other movies were borrowed in this movie, visuals, characterizations, and such. So I thought that that was surprising. And speaking of Josh Gad and Dame Judi Dench, some of the characters really growl their lines, in particular, those two actors. And in fact, Mulch describes the two of them as a pair of hippos grunting at each other with an ear infection. And it kind of sounds that way. And I just wondered why they chose those voices in particular. Ferdia Shaw plays Artemis Fowl, and viewers are describing his performance as a little robotic. And I kind of agree. It's disappointing because I really wanted to like him as a character and be on his side. And a lot of the fans of the book say that his character just was not like the real character in the book. For example, they say that he would never go surfing or even be involved in an athletic endeavor. Like the movie opens and you see him surfing, and of course, he's an expert at it because he's brilliant. He's also supposed to be this criminal mastermind, but in this movie, not so much. The biggest complaint by viewers is that the characters are rather flat and uninspiring with no insights into their motivation. We just simply haven't been given the time to fall in love with them and really know who they are. So when people do certain actions, we're just kind of like, okay, whatever. And we don't really become invested in them. And so if anybody dies, we're like, okay, whatever. There was also this giant troll thing that was supposed to eat humans and elves within seconds, but there's this big fight, and it was kind of unimpressive. He was just slow, and the fight scene just wasn't all that impressive. And he actually looked like more like a bigger version of Mulch and that character rather than his own unique villain type of a character. And the whole world building of the elves didn't make a lot of sense to me. For example, why is there a centaur and why are all of the elves human size? I guess I missed that explanation. Their world seemed to be more sci-fi and fantasy rather than a magical, charming place where I really wanted to spend time. There's so much exposition and narrative. And I imagine because they're trying to catch up and put in as much content as they can from the books into the movie, but you're just kind of like, okay, you're telling me and show me instead of telling me everything. And many of Disney's live action movies lately haven't been that good. Although this movie's in a different category from live action per se, it's actually somewhat telling that Disney chose to send this movie straight to Disney Plus rather than wait another month or so and try it at the movie theaters. Of course, I recognize we're still in the middle of the pandemic, so I guess I understand their decision, especially after waiting so many years to get this to the big screen. It's just a shame that it never made it to the big screen. Speaking of the big screen, it's really strange when this trailer first came out, what, a couple of years ago, it was very magical. And I was like, ooh, that looks really good. There's this visual of this kind of magical fairy in this white flowing gown, and she's floating in the air. And you're like, ooh, what's that all about? I want to see that movie. And that scene is not even in the movie. And in fact, a lot of the scenes from that trailer are not even in the movie. And I just think that would have been great because it's so magical. It seemed odd that that would be that magical scene would be the one that they cut from the movie. And honestly, the movie's kind of short, so they could have put it in. I don't know any of the background story behind all of that, but it just seemed like another disconnect. Like they were just like tired of this project and just threw it out there to be done with it. I don't know. Now, because a lot of scenes take place in Ireland, it would have been nice to have heard more Irish accents, and just because Ireland seems so magical, that would have lent a more fairy tale aspect to the movie. But there are more British accents than Irish accents. Now, Laura McDonald is really cute, but for the first few minutes that I saw her, I wasn't actually sure if she was supposed to be male or female. She kind of starts off as an androgynous character, in my opinion, and then with all of the green uniforms, it seemed like all of the elves should have been in a Christmas movie or, in The Wizard of Oz or something with their emerald green uniforms and marching around. And speaking of Ireland, there's this random wedding scene that supposedly is taking place in Italy. And I wondered, why didn't they have a wedding scene in Ireland? There were just some really strange choices, and that scene was also just kind of odd. Now, there are a couple of funny lines that I'll leave you with. One is by Mulch, and he says, most people are afraid of gluten. How do you think they'd handle goblins? And I thought that's so true. And then another line by Dame Judi Dench, she says, she's talking to this one character and she says, and I couldn't understand what she said. If the other character's name was Riley, it's what it sounded like. She said, shut up, Riley. Can't anyone ask a rhetorical question around here? I thought that was kind of funny. And then, as far as interesting lines, there is a line where Artemis says to his father, "What I really want is to believe in you." And that goes along with the themes of the movie, believing in what exactly, believing in another person, believing in yourself. So, talk to your family about those kinds of things after you see this movie. Now, if you like the idea of a wealthy child of a brilliant scientist, then check out the latest version of Tomb Raider, which has somewhat of a similar story. Okay, that's it for my movie review. Thanks for supporting my channel by subscribing. Be sure and like it, share it with friends, tell everybody to come on over and join in on the fun, and visit my website, moviereviewmom.com, where I have more information on each of the movie reviews. All right, thanks for visiting and have a great time watching movies at home or at the theater because you're brilliant.